everyone, and welcome to the Diplomacy Timing Window, where the rules are discussed and our opinions don't matter. My name is Hungry Hippos.
I'm the Half-Heard.
So today is tournament update number 3, and I thought I was going to be able to say tournament correctly the first time, but apparently not. Thanks for joining us today. And so let's get started on game number 1.
Let's get into it. Let's bring that up. Generally, I think we've had a good week with the tournament games. Some interesting things have happened. Here we're looking at game 1, where score-wise, we got zeros across the board except for Seoul, who you can see is on Mechatol. So they're at 1 point with the Custodians token.
Yeah, I mean, we got 3 objectives. Probably it's not the end of round 2 yet, so still plenty of options to go. But It looks like there's been some, galaxy activity.
Definitely, and one of my favorites. I love saying this one. Looks like SAR took Lodor by going through the A-hole and asserting their dominance on the other side of the galaxy.
Yes, always assert dominance.
I love the sneaky, asserting that dominance through the A-hole. So sneaky. They never see it coming. Remember, people, defend your A-hole.
I'm interested to see what Necro can nibble from that, because Necro has 2 dreadnoughts open for business, and L1 and SAR are there. SAR can give them gravity drive. What can L1 give them? Neuromotivator, plasma scoring, and Sarween. I wonder
there might be some healthy fighting over that A-hole. That's for sure.
Yeah, there's some goodies there.
Yeah. So we see Seoul obviously taking Mechatol, like we said earlier. We spoke about Seoul's decision to take Welland the first round in this game. Do you remember that? Over Resculon to score the 6 planet objective. So I guess now we see where that came from, and I guess it was to put them in the position. They were in a lousy position with the Nebula in front of Corny Gresculon. So this gave them that Mechatol point. So it all kind of comes together there for them. Kudos, great play.
Yeah, I'd agree. And then SAR comes in as they do beyond the A-hole to take Welland from them, which leaves Yastro to choose. Do we take the open planets or, try to secure a better slice from SAR, so that SAR's not there?
Yeah, I mean, they've had a lot of people taking Welland, which is by rights theirs. They've yet to hold it, so yeah.
Perhaps it is not important to them.
Speaking of rights, Hakan gives everyone a refresh with trade, as is their birthright.
I wonder if X-1 will be given by all.
Well, by most for sure. Actually, SAR's TA was played by Necro. So, I mean, I suppose SAR has trade goods that they could give if that was the agreement. But otherwise, that TA, which obviously was given earlier.
Yeah, I also don't see L1 X-1 because of the obvious.
Yeah, what I like about L1 is their promissory note is a good option in place of X-1, right? So you get the token free refresh in exchange for a token with their promissory note. So that's the trade I like to make as L1.
It's a good trade.
Refresh. And I think it suits them well. There's a little scuffle over in Centauri. Where is that one?
Let's see, over here.
That's right. Yeah, you can see Necro's token down. They have a little scuffle with Seoul over there. Land a hit, get gravity drive, and then, like a real gentleman, declare retreat back to Vefut.
I mean, that
classy play.
That makes the most sense. You're not gonna
get in, get done, get out.
The infantry, which leaves the other side of the slice prime territory for the taking.
And then off the galaxy board, there's some fun little plays in the log that you'll see where L1 tries to spy SAR. SAR sabotages that. So L1 says, well, have a crippled defense, and destroys the PDS on Ra. SAR says, well, good day to you, sir, and responds with a little bit of uprising in L1 Zobat planet.
No way.
So yeah, a little healthy tit for tat going on between those two. Always nice to see. And
Yeah,
I wonder
like
if Lodor and the A-hole had anything to do with that.
But I mean, I can see why SAR would want to sabotage given the cards that were played thereafter.
That's right. Yeah, it seems like there were some good cards. So
yeah,
that's from what I see summarizes game 1.
Awesome. We'll move on to game 2.
All right. Here we are with game 2. Pretty interesting map so far. Score-wise, we have Barony at 2 points. One of those points being a support swap with Jolnar. Jolnar at 1 point. We got Sol at 1 point, Nalu at 1 point, scoring a secret objective, the Secrets of the Cosmos. Necro at 1 point, as you can see, with the Custodian, as he's sitting on Mechatol.
That is, yeah, there's a lot of interesting things that Necro has done this game.
Yeah, the map's looking pretty interesting, so we'll get into it now a bit. You'll see people kind of all different factions kind of all over the place. So starting off, we see the RA come out on tech. Jolnar researches PDS2 and Barony decides to get in on that action. So remember to look out for those. Those are easily forgotten and you regret it when it's way too late. I find that's how I feel anyways.
Yeah, PDSs aren't something that's early. But PDS2 isn't something that I necessarily think about early on, but it is a big game changer if you can secure a slice that way.
We then see an
interesting situation over
so
here.
I was just getting to that. If you look there, then Barony follows up with some construction action, a PDS on Kornik. Nalu says, I can do that too, and puts his own on Resculon. So we got that system neatly divided. That's super interesting.
That is such a rare sight to see.
That's true. I don't know how often I've really seen that, if really ever. So
and at the same time, it's two kind of like mediocre planets, that entire system. So, strongly contested mediocre planets. However, it is next to the Nalu home system.
It is next to the Nalu home system. The annoying thing that Nalu is going to have to deal with now is that Barony got that PDS2 from Jolnar, which means anytime Nalu activates his home system to build, he's going to take some shots first, which is super annoying.
Ouch.
Barony also has the PDS on Lodor, so watch out for some lasers through the A-hole. This episode full of A-holes, my God.
I know. Necro's not going to like that.
That can be annoying for sure when you least expect it. All right, so moving on, Ghosts giving Nalu a trade good to put another hole, the B hole, in Tarman system. You then see Ghost, yeah. So he pays 1 trade good to get the wormhole up. Ghost then pretty soon after uses that wormhole to get across the galaxy to Thiba, where he put. Sorry, I misspoke. It's the A-hole that was placed this turn. See, I should have known. Why did I even say
we have
else?
Both of them placed, so
yes, right. the beta in Thiba was placed previously, which we noticed in last week's review, and just now the A-hole was placed in Tarman, and then Ghost used both of those wormholes to obviously get to where they are in Thiba now.
Fantastic. It's an interesting play to go all the way over there.
Yeah, we were wondering last week who was going to use it.
Yeah,
because Nalu placed it, and we were saying, well, Nalu has the beta in their own system or in their own slice, right? So was it going to be a Ghosts play, or was it going to be a Nalu play? So now we see obviously the Ghosts taking first blood.
Looking forward to seeing
home system.
So seeing where this is headed.
It's crazy, actually. You look at the three of the home systems have 3 enemies adjacent to them. So looking like a pretty aggressive game in this game too.
Mhm. Are we gonna
Couple
get
of,
in? Go
we
ahead.
will, yeah. Just a couple of things, I guess, before we get into the third action there. We have Jolnar granting everyone X-1 in their eternal wisdom. Barony giving a promissory note to Sol. Not quite sure what it is or why it was given. Necro gives a promissory note to Barony. Again, not too sure what it is. Barony gives a promissory note for 2 trade goods to Sol. Maybe that's a TA, but I mean, again, he traded something else before, so
Yeah,
not too sure.
That's a lot of
lot
Barony
of kind
trade.
of lot of trading with Barony happening.
How many
Pretty interesting.
notes does Barony have left? He's got.
Let's take a look.
5, so he's exchanging them.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
That is fascinating. Also, am I missing something? How did Barony become neighbors with Sol?
That's what I was wondering as well. I think Sol had the destroyer in the alpha from last turn.
Right.
And then probably moved it after the trade.
Fair.
So now looking at the Veyfoot system, you'll see a couple of Nalu cruisers there. That was pretty interesting play. Nalu used flank speed to send 2 cruisers with no infantry over. Was able to win that combat against the Jolnar. Obviously, I think vying for the Intimidate Council objective.
Yeah.
They're looking pretty good for that right now.
Unless Barony wants something else.
And then on to the last kind of combat that we've seen this week, and that's in the Jolnar slice. Necro using flank speed to get over to Abyss Freya and wrestling it from the slippery clutches of the fish people. You see, they've taken both Abyss and Freya. They do not, however, get any tech, because you'll see that Jolnar in the revealed promissory notes has played antivirus.
Oh, but now Jolnar has to worry about, does he give it back and take Abyss Freya and open up the can of worms of the hungry necros?
It is. For the time being, they've protected their coveted technological secrets from those nasty robots. But for how long? As you pointed out, if they do retaliate, that virus will mutate and they won't be protected.
It's an excellent move by Necro, identifying and opening their Jolnar, knowing they had the antivirus, but taking the calculation that it beats Freya was worth it.
Mm-hmm. Keep a close eye on that, see how it plays out. I guess the last thing to note there was Necro giving 1 trade good to Sol in exchange for military support, which they, I believe, played immediately.
That makes sense.
All right, let's move on to game 3. Game 3, we got on the scoreboard, Khan leading with 2 VP, including a support swap with Nalu. Not a swap, sorry. This is the game where Nalu traded the support for trade convoys. So Hakan holding the only support for the throne at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Nalu is at 1 point with custodians. You see them on Mechatol. And Sar with 1 point, scoring the secret objective, threaten enemies.
Yes, with the lonely cruiser.
That's right, in the empty Kornik Resculon system.
Now this is a decent SAR slice where there's a sufficient amount of protection going on. You don't often see SAR want to protect a slice. They just kind of go everywhere.
Yeah, this time they're on the right side of the a-hole.
Yes, it's always nice to be on Lodvar. That's what
it's a great system. I like it. Yeah. So first, right at the beginning of round 2, the Nalu take Mechatol, and They've also chosen Imperial as their strategy card for the round, so they're looking in a good position to score some points.
Oh man, Nalu with Imperial, I love it. As long as they have their 0 token.
I
Awesome.
actually have the pleasure or burden, I'll let you decide, of being part of the group chat for this game. And I'll tell you, there was a lot of heat around that play.
Did someone let it happen? Is that what happened?
So in some of the table's opinion, they believe it was let happen because in a previous round, they kind of made it clear that Nalu, in exchange for Jolnar's research agreement, gave the gift, but Jolnar did not play it this round. They felt like they'd prefer to hold it, which I think is fair.
Yeah,
I think it could go either way. You play it and get Mechatol, or you hold it as like an end game.
there's no way to bind that deal. It's not immediate.
That's right.
Gets played whenever it gets played.
So it's purely at his discretion. So, but the rest of the table was not too happy. They think, especially because Nalu took Imperial, that he should have played the gift. So just pretty interesting, the kind of different strategies, different viewpoints going around.
It's nice when there's some good dialogue to go with the gameplay.
There were a lot of threats going Nalu's way, saying that they're going to be targeted now because of this, and Nalu did not seem overly concerned, I must say.
That's fantastic.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think in order for Nalu to take full advantage of Imperial, they got to be able to score one of these two. So do they have that?
It's a lot of tech up objectives up right now.
They got to wait for tech for one. They don't have the influence. Yeah, they got to wait for tech.
Is diplomacy in play?
Let's see.
Would they
Leadership,
be able to
diplomacy.
refresh?
It is.
So
Refreshing is possible.
Refresh Mechatol.
Yeah, or I mean, they could just go for and not be greedy and try to go for the secret. But yeah, lots of options.
So that was the big opening excitement for that. I guess in other news in this game, Barony gives L1 speaker in exchange for 1 promissory note. That's always nice to see. You don't see the speaker being traded too much, at least in my experience.
Yeah, I've had situations where I give speaker to someone on my right.
And that's what happened in this case.
L1, and it screws you on agenda phase.
It does. Yeah, it's great for the strategy card picking, lousy for agenda voting.
Yeah, so I guess if you don't have the influence, it doesn't matter, but it looks like Barony does. So I don't know, balance, checks and balances.
Checks and balances. And then last thing was trade got played. We're currently in the middle of trade. SAR giving L1 and Jolnar the free refreshes. And so far we've seen SAR giving their trade agreements to Jolnar, which was immediately used. So I wonder if that was part of some other arrangement. And then SAR trades 4 trade goods to Hakan for 6 commodities, which is pretty interesting. Hakan not betting on any kind of other deals going on. They're just, happy to say, let's do a clean swap. They'll get 4 in exchange for 2 to SAR. So they're thinking, better secure, I guess, than anything.
Yeah, I'd much rather SAR focus the other way, because it's hard to defend against the ball, especially when you consider the asteroid field between them. The chaos mapping, that's super dangerous.
Yep. Good motivation to stay on there on good terms. Right, on to game 4.
On to game 4. So game 4, we have SAR at 4 points. With a support for the throne and custodian plus an imperial point.
Wow.
Nalu and Sol both at 3. They've exchanged support for the thrones as we described earlier last week. And then Yasserol and Jolnar are at 2, with Jolnar having Sar's support for the throne, and Yasserol with 1 objective and an Imperial. Not much has happened over the course of this game. There's basically a pretty interesting agenda phase that came up. So the first agenda was economic equality. Apparently, Nalu and another faction had 4 TGs and not much for everyone else. So lots of trading happened. Necro predicted outcome 4 and did some wheeling and dealing to make it so that 4 was provided, because it was a contested economic equality. Even Yasserol played Imperial Rider 4, so both Galactic Threat and Imperial Riders were made by Necro and Yasserol respectively for a 4 outcome. So lots of wheeling and dealing to make that happen. And so what's interesting is Necro decided to gain E-Res siphons.
Even more trade goods. Trade goods for days. I love that. I love Necro with E-Res.
So I was curious, is like, why E-Res? They have apparently Daxiv, Hyper, and E-Res. There's 2 greens and a yellow. Thankfully for Necro, is probably happy that there's no research objectives on the board right now, but I don't think I've ever seen a Necro with E-Res.
E-Res is actually my favorite tech to get on Necro. And I'll tell you, because Necro obviously is an aggressive faction, and I find that E-Res synergizes really well with aggression, because E-Res rewards aggression. You go in, you have a fight, you get some tech, you maybe take some planets. On the retaliation, you get paid. And you probably get some more tech. It's just, I think it's just great synergy. So cool to see it so early on. I'm sure they're going to be very happy about it.
Yes, Necro paid handsomely for that outcome. And then we went on to Minister of Exploration, where even more back and forth happened with wheeling and dealing. So Necro tries to buy Minister of Exploration again by providing some trade goods to Nalu, but loses out to Yasserol, who gets Imperial Rider first agenda, pays out handsomely for some 5 TGs to Sol, so that they get Minister of Exploration. Nice. Really great agenda phase by Yasserol.
I guess they're probably hoping to be in a good position to take advantage of that Minister of Exploration.
One would hope. I mean, it's hard to speculate, but they've got some strong equipment and plastic on the Necro side, with some empty planets there. Only kind of a weakish Jolnar. Yeah, Yasserol seems poised to make an effort.
Yeah, potentially some options for sure.
Yeah. And then we got on to the first turn of the 3rd round. First move by Necro was to activate the Jolnar home system on the other side of the galaxy, where there was no chance of bringing anything there. And Jolnar, of course, plays E-Res, and it seems as though that was probably a deal Necro made for Jolnar to vote for on an economic equality. And when I looked at the log, that was the case. So I'm suggesting that Necro and Jolnar, that was a deal that Necro fulfilled on their first turn.
Yeah, I was reading on the Discord, actually, people talking about this. So I guess they're talking specifically about this game. And I guess there's maybe a meta between Necro and Jolnar to just activate each other, and just where if you have the extra tokens, which Necro and Jolnar are usually not lacking in tokens, right? You much prefer trade goods, and you just come to maybe some agreement where you just pay each other through tokens. Pretty broken.
It's 4 TGs, which is 1 more than a command token. So it's like net positive. It just, if you if you can
But for
afford it.
Necro,
Yeah, it's good.
I would argue that a command token is, like you said, normally it's positive, but for Necro, it's even more so because the tokens come even easier. You get them
That's right, with
through
their
tech.
technology.
So 4 resources is 3 tokens, right?
Yeah. That's yeah, it's a good move by Necro if he has had the ability to cultivate that meta. I would probably be annoyed if I was any of the other factions, but I have to tip my
100%
hat to
agree.
that.
And we'll see how the table reacts and if it does.
It's going to be a
forward.
spicy round 3. All right, on to game 5.
And here, I guess we're going to take a little bit of a break because game 5 actually has not seen too much progress from last week. But that's because we knew that the Cha player was on vacation. So they're just getting back now, and you can see in the game logs, the game's kind of moving along again. So nothing real to update here. We got Ghosts at 1 point, scoring threatened enemies, Soul at 1 point as well. And yeah, hoping to see some progress and some excitement coming out of this for next week.
Cool. On to game 6.
Game 6, we have SAR at 2 VP, including a support swap with Hakan. Hakan sitting at 1 VP. We have Yisrael at 1 VP and Soul at 1 VP holding the custodian token, taking Mechatol there. A couple of things to note. Yisrael uses Plagiarize to get Gravity Drive. That's a great card for Yisrael, I think. And Gravity Drive, such a good tech that's just not really on Yisrael's radar. So
how many times have I played Yisrael wishing I had Gravity Drive?
Every time. It's so tough, right? Because Gravity Drive is one of those techs that is, I mean, it's good late game, but obviously great early game that you want to get. But with Yisrael, I always find I want to race for the Hyper and Magion techs.
And you wouldn't be wrong to do so.
Yeah, by the time you even have blue on your radar, it's so late. So I think this is great for them, right? To be so early in the game, getting that Gravity Drive, they must be pretty happy.
Yeah, and they can start focusing on putting some plastic on the board.
Some Hakan wheeling and dealing going on, trading 3 commodities to SAR for a promissory note, giving 2 commodities to Nalu for an action card, and then a trade good and a commodity for an action card from L1. I really like that. It's really cool. Basically using all their commodities, not to get any trade goods in return, but to get a whole bunch of utility through a promissory note and a couple of action cards.
Yeah, it's not always about the trade goods, and it's a smart player that realizes that. Having said that, having like 12 trade goods in your account is never a bad thing.
Never. And then if you look over, you might notice at the top of the screen in the Barry Leitra system, if you remember from last week, there was some wheeling and dealing where the SAR player came out of the beta, and then there was some agreement, promissory notes were traded, SAR did not land any units. While L1 just played Reactor Meltdown, you'll notice there seems to be an orange space dock missing in that system.
Oh, yes.
It did malfunction. It is gone. So we'll see what's going to come of that.
I also noticed SAR has Warfare, and it seemed as though Nalu could not wait.
Yeah, they decided to play it safe. But we'll see. I mean, without the space dock, does SAR continue on a warpath, or do they maybe try something a little simpler?
The SAR ball isn't possible.
Isn't a SAR ball without that floating dock. So
yeah, and if we were to take a look at the infantry situation, it doesn't look like SAR is going to take much, even if they wanted to. Yeah. Not without their space dock.
So we'll see what they decide next week. Let's go on to game 7.
All right, game 7. So here we have Hakan with 4 points, 2 of them being with Imperial.
Wow.
We have Jolnar, L1, and Barony, all three at 2, with Barony having Sar's support for the throne. And Sar, of course, having 2 points, with one of them being a support for the throne as well. Here we have a little bit of action from Necro. They invade Hakan's Lodor, and then they trade a promissory note each. However, based off the game log, it seems Necro forgot to sustain their dreadnought and ended up having their dreadnought destroyed. In exchange, Hakan, all they had to do was destroy a fighter. And through that, Necro gained production biomes. And I thought that was an interesting choice, because the other options were anti-mass, Sarween, neuromotivator, hypermetabolism, and gravity drive. What do you think was going on there?
Well, again, kind of similar to the last game we were talking about, Necro doesn't care so much about command tokens and would be happy to trade them for trade goods. Now, I mean, not to speculate too much, but if Necro and Hakan both have production biomes, you remember with that technology, you need to choose somebody else to gain trade goods.
Yes.
Well, now you got a natural partner and you're gaining 6 trade goods each if you choose each other.
That's true. But here's where the play happens. Necro plays biomes and gives 2 to L1. And you're like, oh, well, okay. I guess that somewhat makes sense, because I haven't gotten to it yet, but Jolnar is starting to inch into L1's territory. But I don't actually think he gave those production biomes to L1 because of that. Because on the very next turn, Necro plays Spy on L1. So,
I mean,
it was to soften the blow.
Could be. I guess at the end of the day, trade goods are great. And for Necro, anything that synergizes by gaining trade goods, whether it's from aggression or from spending command tokens, is a great trade-off. Yeah. So, I like it, especially early on. It's great value. Arguably, what are the other ones are pretty good too. Sarween and Neural, obviously better the earlier you get. Hypermetabolism, gravity drive, again, really good early. It's a tough call.
Yeah. So I checked the objectives, and we see here that the only research objective are unit upgrades, and none of those were on offer. So, I mean, it makes sense. To an extent, I think TGs make sense.
I see it. It makes sense to me. I guess it's just a toss up between, what a player values.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they're thinking that they're going to try to get those other ones as soon as possible as well, right? Hypermetabolism obviously synergizes really well with production biomes, because you get the extra token that you then need to play the biomes tech.
It's true. I still probably would have gone for the good old-fashioned gravity drive, given you need to get your ships out so that they can start gobbling. But production biomes is a good deal. Last thing I'll point out on this game is Jolnar. Explorers comes over to Graal. Graal was an empty planet, and they swipe it from L1. And the timing was pretty interesting, because it was right before L1's turn, and L1 had the plan to play Rise of the Messiah. They did play it. Just not in time to secure that planet enough. So
one less
good timing by Jolnar.
I do love that card, Rise of a Messiah.
It's
probably one of my favorites.
It's one of the most sabotaged cards, I think.
I can see why. I've come to sabotage it personally less and less. But it's always tempting because it's a great card. It's not so much, I guess, the value, right? Because when you think about it, like, what's the cost of 5 or 6 infantry?
It's getting them there.
It's all about how you got to get them there, and usually that's the difficult part. So being able to just suddenly populate all your planets, to me, is just I love it. It's a great card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course we still have Sar defending Hakon's Mechatol like a good boy.
Oh,
good luck with that. And on to game 8. Game 8, we had not much to update on here. They're just finishing round 1. I believe we had a player who was on vacation there for a while, but they're back and progress is being made, and all points are at 0.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing this game.
Yeah, this was the one where Cha pulled out the the amazing flagship round 1.
That's
well
right.
done. I one last question here. If you had the choice, would you have Ember's Warsun or Cha's flagship?
As a faction unit or as a early ship?
We'll go with early ship.
Definitely Cha's flagship, I'd say.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the Warsun, it's so valuable. You don't want to do anything with it.
Exactly. Whereas the Cha flagship, you don't actually have to send it in. You can keep it in a safe place, and it can still contribute. An early game, when fleet counts are low, it does a lot of damage, I guess.
All right. Well, that's the update for week 3. Still coming up. Great. Some exciting things. 2 games had a little bit of a stall, but we looking forward to them.
Yeah, we're pretty much a quarter way through, so lots of time still to go. Right, good to see great progress being made in most of the games, and a lot of wheeling and dealing still. We talked about it last week. A lot of trading happening, a lot more than probably what you normally would see, especially this early on.
Yeah, and there's some really interesting moves going on, so I'm excited.
Yeah, no, interesting strategies, interesting plays. It's good to see. I like seeing people thinking outside of the box and not playing so mainstream. So I'm really enjoying it so far.
Well, I think we spent enough time stalling in this timing window, so let's hit the pass button and keep the game moving.